Hey everybody, I'm Cole. That's my name. This is my channel. Welcome back. This is going to be, I think, the first movie review on this channel. It's just something that I had a little inkling I wanted to talk about. In some of my previous videos, I may have referenced Jujutsu Kaisen quite a few times, but I haven't really gotten to talk about it on the channel very much. And I thought this would be a good opportunity because last weekend I saw the JJK Execution movie. I do feel like movie is you could stretch that term a little bit, but we'll get into it. And I just had some thoughts about it, and I thought maybe I'd chat about it and talk about it, and maybe give my general thoughts for anybody who hasn't seen it or is thinking about seeing it, or anybody who wants to have a conversation about it. So yeah, a little bit of background. So Jujutsu Kaisen Execution is a compilation film, and basically what that means is they took some of the end of the last season, season 2. Oh, and I'll say this at the top of the video. There will be spoilers for Jujutsu Kaisen season 2 and the first 2 episodes of season 3. So if you haven't seen any of that, or you're not caught up as far as the anime or the manga, I would hold off. But it'll be light spoilers, I think. I can talk about it fairly generally. And I imagine anybody who's interested in the movie is probably caught up, or you definitely should be. But that aside, basically this compilation film takes the end of season 2 and kind of does like a cut version of it to kind of get people up to speed, or I believe that was the intention. And then it aired the first 2 episodes of season 3 as the second half of the movie. So I'm kind of going to talk about this review in 2 halves. And first I'll talk about the kind of compilation of season 2 that they play in the beginning half of the movie. And starting off with that, I'm a huge fan of the series. I have been caught up. I will say, going into this movie, and the reason I hesitate to even really call it a movie in that way, is because if you went to see this and you hadn't been caught up, this little compilation is not going to jog you up to speed. You're going to be very lost. And I do think, honestly, the compilation, the kind of recap, really hurts the film in a lot of ways. I mean, it's an hour and a half, and I would say probably an hour to 40 minutes of that. No, it maybe is less. It's 30 or 40 minutes of that is just a kind of jump cut version of the last few episodes of season 2. Prior to going to see it, I thought it was just going to be the last 2 episodes of season 2 and the first 2 of season 3. But instead, it's this weird cutting around version of the end of season 2, the Shibuya incident arc. And as a fan, obviously, I was happy to see a lot of that. It seems like they reanimated a lot of scenes, touched them up, did some new voice acting, and it's really great. All that stuff is wonderful. I saw the English dub as well, because I watched the original series in dub, and that's just, for me, I know some people prefer to watch the sub, and that's fine. I'm sure they're both fairly relative. The sub might be better as far as the voice acting is concerned, as it's in the natural language, but I personally just find the dub easier to watch, and I actually like the cast for the most part of the English dub of Jujutsu Kaisen. My main problem with the English cast is that a lot of the male characters just sound the same, and if you don't know who the characters are, sometimes I feel like for an outside audience it would be hard to figure out who's talking. But, it was nice to see some of that stuff, like, reanimated and brought back, and seeing it on the big screen was very, very cool. But my frustration with it is that even for fans, even for people who are caught up, I think that the recap did not do justice to the previous arc of the series, nor is it a very good recap in general. It cuts around so much stuff, and it's really more of a highlight reel. And maybe that's for the low attention span modern audience, a more Gen Z type audience, no offense. But even for that, I don't think that it serves the purpose that maybe they had in mind. It felt kind of just like padding to me, and it was frustrating, and it killed my vibe for the second half, which is the airing of the new stuff, quite a bit. And we'll get into that in a moment. Obviously, there was some good stuff. The Yuji fighting Mahito with Todo is great, and always seeing Todo, one of my favorite characters. It was wonderful. I saw it with my best friend, so it was a good scene to see together. I will say my theater experience was absolutely terrible. Had these guys sitting beside us, and it was like, listen, I'm a nerd, and I love nerdy stuff, but this guy, every time a character was on screen, they would yell out what character it was, and they were like spoiling stuff from later in the manga. Now, I'm finished with the manga, so it isn't a problem for me, but for other people in the audience who don't know what stuff is going to happen, you're like essentially spoiling for them and being super obnoxious. I wanted to say something, but I just wasn't in the mood to start a fight with some fucking dumbass. So that was frustrating, and that definitely hurt my experience a little bit as well. But just talking about the movie, I do think that compilation part was a little weak, if you will say. Uh, and Mappa, they always do an amazing job with the animation. They always knock it out of the park. I mean, the working situation at Mappa has to be bordering on slave labor, but it turns out a worthwhile product in my opinion. I love their animation. I'm again still kind of upset that they did not get the contract for Kagurabachi because I think they do a great job with the series. But I also don't want their workload to be too much because I'd like them to keep focusing on finishing JJK because the rest of the series I think is going to be all gas. But that's kind of my thoughts on the first half, the compilation half of things. It's it's really not necessary. Going into this, you should be caught up if you know what you're getting into. And the recap, almost in the way that it felt like padding and the way that it cut around things, wasn't even very satisfying as a huge fan of the series. And so I think that is a big weakness to this movie. And again, it's why I hesitate to call it a movie, because it's really just an airing of 2 new episodes and like a highlight reel. But going into those new episodes, so season 3 is the beginning of the Culling Games arc, which I think is probably the best part of the series coming from the manga perspective. It shows off so much more of the power system and Jujutsu sorcery, and we get cool fights, and a lot of characters get their good moments. So I'm very hyped for the season overall. These first 2 episodes deal with kind of just the first little mini arc of that, which is Yuta Akotsu, seen here in JJK Volume 0 on the shelf. The original main character of the series, going after Yuji, the main character of mainline Jujutsu Kaisen, and going to kind of take him down. And we also get to see some of the Zenin clan members, which is Megami and Maki's family. And we get to see Naoya, who is kind of the uber misogynist, very egotistical sorcerer. And it was cool to see all that and get a little bit of that world building with characters. And then, I mean, I think the piece de resistance of the new episodes was definitely getting to see Choso, who is a big fan favorite character, I know, in the community, fight Naoya. That fight was definitely the kind of like climax of the film, and especially that second half. And it's wonderful. It's some of the best animation in the series by far, bar none. And honestly, I would say it's worth the price of admission just to see that stuff. We also get to see some cool stuff with Yuji, like fighting curses, because he's kind of outcasted from society at this point after the Shibuya incident, and he's trying to make up for all of the lives that he took when Sukuna took over his body, etc., etc. The Yuji Yuta stuff, I thought that their fight was going to be a little longer, and the way they cut between it, because they kind of show it in the beginning of the episodes, and then they kind of loop back around. They do a let's go back kind of moment. The whole timeline and the way things were cut in this movie, I think, is the biggest frustration and what hurts the film the most. Because even as a fan and even as someone who's read the manga, it did feel like a little disjointed to me in the direction and the way that they cut around things. And everything looks beautiful. Again, I'd like to reiterate, I mean, it looks beautiful, and even seeing it in dub, like the English voice cast does a good job. I am a little, I will say, Yuta's actress, I believe, because I believe he's voiced by a female. I just don't like her voice for his character in this part of the series. Back in JJK 0 and in the movie it kind of works. He's a little bit younger. He's a little bit more naive. I do think they should have maybe given him a slightly more masculine voice actor for the newer stuff, because, his attitude to things has kind of changed a little bit. But it's not a big deal. It's not a super huge hurt to anything. I just feel like his character has evolved since then, and it would have been cool to kind of hear a different take on that. But, it is what it is. And it's not like a huge complaint. My, again, real whole complaint about this is just the compilation aspect of it. And then the 2 new episodes, it felt a little disjointed, but I think the problem with that is, there's a lot of context that's coming in the episodes that follow these, and it kind of cuts off right before a lot of context is revealed. These first 2 episodes also start to deal with Yuji's backstory and how he's not necessarily human, and how there's a lot of intrigue related to him and Kenjaku, and maybe that he was like basically created specifically to be Sukuna's vessel, but they don't explain much of that. And so if you're a new audience member coming into that, or even someone who watched season 2 and hasn't read the manga, you're going to come into that and be very confused by that, I feel like, because they just kind of do these flashbacks where it's heavily implied, and I know what's going on, and I do believe there'll be more exposition given in the coming episodes, but it did feel a little bit confusing, and I felt like if I didn't have as much context as I did, I would have felt very confused. And luckily, I brought somebody with me who didn't have the context, so to see his perspective on being kind of lost through everything gave me a different perspective on the movie. As far as a review, I know in a lot of my reviews I like rank and give like a number ranking. I would say, as a big fan of the series, but I'm honestly going to give it maybe like a 6 out of 10 because the animation is stellar and amazing, and I was very hyped for this, and I was happy to see all of it, especially on the big screen, and it was really wonderful, but I can only give it a 6 because of some of those faults that come in with the compilation aspect and with some of the confusing way they cut the story. It was a little strange to me. I'm going to withhold my judgment, obviously, until more episodes come out. I believe the series begins airing the actual season 3 in January. So I'll withhold my judgment on like how the story is portrayed going forward. But that's really how I feel about it. Honestly, like I don't know if I would recommend this movie even to people who are big fans or people who are interested in the series, because just wait till the season comes out, really. Because you're not getting anything new from the season 2 stuff except prettier animation, which is something I love, but I don't think it's worth the price of admission for a movie. Maybe when it's on streaming, but then by the time it's on streaming, you'll probably just want to watch the season as it'll be airing. And that's what I would recommend. I would say this film is only for the diehard of diehard fans, and maybe you'll have a better theater experience than I did. But that's definitely my general thoughts on the movie. But, Mappa's still hitting it out of the park when it comes to actually animating the series. I'm hoping that the weirdness in the direction and portrayal of the story is kind of just from those 2 episodes, and maybe some of it was coming off of that compilation. Again, withholding a lot of judgment, but I would say I don't really recommend this movie unless you're a die-hard Jujutsu Kaisen fan. And maybe some other people can disagree with me and we can have a conversation about it in the comments, but that's just where I stand with it. I would say maybe just wait for the season. I feel like it'll probably be a better watching experience in that way. But I just wanted to kind of talk about that because I haven't seen a lot of other people, discussing the movie now that it's out, at least in my circles, and it's interesting to me, and I'd love to know how other people felt about it. Maybe you feel like I'm off base, but that's really all I have to say about it. I don't want to ramble too long. This was kind of a quick video I was going to do. Yeah, so that's Jujutsu Kaisen Execution. I would say wait for season 3, but I do love the franchise, and if you're a diehard, go for it. But that's all for me today, folks, so thank you. Peace.